Namaste, and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy Chad Fellers, we have casual talk about the challenges and successes in medical affairs with the most exciting and impactful professionals in pharma. As always, we have another great one for you today, so stick around.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles. I am your host, Chad Fellers, with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you, Mary?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I cannot believe we are halfway or over halfway through November. This is crazy that 2025 is coming to an end. This is nuts.
Yeah, it's, but you want to hear something cool?
Yes, that's all we have a guest on, but are you wanting to share something too?
This won't be as cool as what our guest is going to be talking to us about, but I get to be a fire marshal in our office building. Yes, for our suite. So I get to be the fire marshal. Tracy and I are going to both be the co-fire marshals. So we're supposed to go to fire marshal training today. I don't know what that means. I don't even have a fire extinguisher, so I don't know what they expect me to do.
So I expect you to add this to your SIG line or business card or something like that, because it's like a sandwich artist now at Subway. That's what they're called. So,
but
anyways,
I'm not putting out any fires.
Well,
like literal fires.
You can. I'm sure you've seen a resume or two where people have exaggerated things before, Mary.
Maybe.
Which is another conversation anyway. So, and I'm sure in those conversations, you've been able to offer some constructive feedback and to those potential candidates that you might be representing on some of that embellishing. So, that's the best way I can try to set up today's conversation, right? So this is what we're going to be talking about as far as not specific to resumes, but really engaging in conversations, offering feedback that is the importance rather of establishing feedback in a way that is positive, encouraging, and really will help set the team up for success. I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more with our guest today. So Mary, with that, why don't you introduce our guest?
So today we welcome Linsay Davis. She is a PharmD graduate from Butler University. And when I think of Butler University, I always think of the basketball tournament, because I have a theory, which I may have shared with people before, that only pharmacy schools have basketball teams that make it into, the big basketball tournament. Yeah. So, and they're the Bulldogs, right?
They are the Bulldogs, yes.
So she's been in pharma for over 10 years. She's been with Sanofi. She's been with Novartis. She's been with Novartis again, through the acquisition of Avexis, one of my favorite little cool startups of the day, Travere, and is now with a startup, 10 Point Therapeutics. And I'm pleased to say I have a fellow, even transplanted Austinite, to join us today. So welcome to the podcast, Linsay.
Thank you so much, Mary and Chad. I'm really excited to chat with you guys today.
Me too. So if you have listened to or watched any of ours, we get you with a few questions. And the first one is the one that everybody gets. So what would your walk-up song be?
Oh, maybe She Blinded Me with Science. I always think of that one.
Do you know that one, Chad?
Nope, I don't. Tell me more.
The great Thomas Dolby.
That's right.
Yes, that's from my. I'll have to send it to you later. I love that one. She Blinded Me with Science.
That's from your time. Is that what you said, Mary?
Yes,
it's an 80s song. It's from my time.
I love the 80s. I love the 80s. So maybe I do know it. I don't know. Anyway, continue on. Continue on with the conversation.
Fine. I love that one. By the way, that's maybe one of my favorite ones I've heard so far. Okay, so you have a weekend zero plans, know where you have to be, what are you going to do with your weekend?
Um, well, I should say, I mean, I should spend it with my family, I guess. I guess that's what I should do. But what, what I've been doing
No
is
obligations. This is like an
getting a
obligation free answer.
That's
getting
right.
a workout in. I've been talking about that with Mary. There's a new place I've been going that I really like. So I'd say getting that in. If I have nothing to do, I'm a crafter. I make things. So this is my office, but also kind of my creative studio. So I would work on one of the quilts I have going or something like that. And that I can just kind of hyper focus and spend the whole day doing.
So relaxing.
So
Yeah, love it. Okay, my last question. Do you have a secret superpower?
I do. I think we were chatting about this. Individualization, I think, is one of my superpowers. So I'm very good at understanding how to deliver information to the person I'm talking to in a way that they may receive. And so I have to, it's not one size fits all. So you have to I kind of think about how would this person want to hear this, or what do they need to hear, and I'm able to deliver it that way. And I think that's one of my superpowers.
And an amazing segue.
It's a great segue.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you were the
Linsay,
king of segues. You've been
well, I
dethroned,
mean,
bro.
I know. Well, that's a low bar though, Mary. So let's don't compare it to me. In full disclosure, no. Let's look forward to digging into the conversation. And as custom by our normal conversations, one of the things we like to start with is our guest key takeaways. And so would love to hear your thoughts on what you want to leave the listeners with today for our conversation. So would you mind sharing them?
Sure. I think in talking to Mary before this podcast, we were just chatting about different things in the MSL space and what's important to for leaders to know. And then the conversation got into this importance around being able to deliver feedback to your team. And I think as an MSL leader, that's really important for MSLs. MSLs are always wondering what they can do to get ahead or to get more involved in an organization. And this is really key. And what I think is great about feedback in general is that it's a skill that anyone can learn. So I think it's, you might be awkward at it at first, but like all things with practice, you get better at it. So I try to challenge other leaders to be uncomfortable, get into it, but figure out the authentic way to do it. So I think authentic and productive feedback builds strong teams. I think your team, you know, they see if you're honest and authentic with other people on the team, and if you're not, it just cuts into your credibility when you're trying to deliver it to them. So I think creating that environment is really important, which gets into my second takeaway, which is about, do not be stingy with praise. I think uh, when I lived in New York, there's that see something, say something. So I think to myself, if you think it, say it in a positive way. I mean, you have to you have to kind of filter that sometimes, but when appropriate, say it. But sometimes you think internally, oh, that was really great that they did that or spoke up on a call, and you don't say it. And then I think that's a missed opportunity. So if you get in the habit of practicing with positive feedback, I think it makes the difficult conversations easier. And there's some other people in my life that I admire, and I see how they are able to be effusive with praise and how that really helps teams. Which also gets into, don't outsource these difficult conversations. I think to HR, especially around career development. I think as an MSL leader, MSLs want to know how they can grow and what are other career paths, and you have to be really honest with people, I think, and talk about their strengths. And sometimes those are challenging conversations. Sometimes people are not ready for the next step and don't know it. But if you've created that culture where you're giving and receiving feedback, then that becomes a natural conversation. Um, so another one is about closing the loop. I see a lot of times that we work on projects or do things. I will get feedback on certain people, and that never gets back to them. So I've challenged peers also to get in the habit of delivering feedback, both positive and negative, especially, when someone did a great job, let them know. And where MSLs have an opportunity to prepare better or ask better questions, show up better, let them know, because without getting that feedback, you don't know what you don't know.
So, I guess before we get into all of the nitty gritty, I know Chad is chomping at the bit over there with some questions. Can you elaborate a little bit more about your career journey so far? And
Sure. Mary actually, her group was one of the first groups to help me get into an MSL role. So that was really important. But going all the way back, I graduated pharmacy school and was a retail pharmacist for uh, 10 years. And I was put into a management role very young and inexperienced, as I'm sure, many people have experienced. But in the pharmacy world, every pharmacy has to have a manager. Not every pharmacy manager is a manager. So uh, I was thrown into a lot of situations where I had to handle difficult things, and I think in that case, a lot of it did not go well. I was very inexperienced, um, but I think grew from that, and then transitioned into pharma. Got thrown into a commercial team actually, which was a learning experience, and did that for a few years in a market access team at Sanofi, and then I was able to, with Mary's group, get my first MSL role at Mallinckrodt, and through that really grew in the field role, got into some field leadership, and through a reorg, which I think often can be exciting catalysts into different things, got into strategy and operations. So I did that for quite a few years. And now I find myself back leading an MSL team. I took over the team at Travere, and now I'll be at 10 Point to build a new team from the ground up.
We have a lot of overlapping experiences, I think, from a journey. I was very similar to you, 6 months into being in the pharmacy field, getting thrown into management,
yeah,
two independent stores coming together, 30 years of experience both, and trying to navigate how to develop ways of working that work for this new organization, et cetera. So yeah, and then even the journey of kind of this evolution from being a manager to a leader. And I think that there's certainly a difference in just hearing some of the words that you've used. Sounds like the story is very similar with that. So getting into this, so you walk through some of the key takeaways, and one of the things that you mentioned around feedback, talking about could be positive, negative, actionable, or just commentary or growth oriented or soul crushing. So there's so many different potential impacts that the words that we speak to those that we serve can really affect them. So um, how tell us a little bit how, I mean, let's just get straight to it. Like for those that struggle with being able to share some of those things where growth needs to happen, right? So how can leaders approach this from this, I must give criticism or fix what's wrong, to helping somebody learn in be a part of their learning journey? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. I think I want to share kind of an aha moment I had around feedback and the importance of it. So there's a book called Machiavelli for Women that I did a little book club with some friends at Novartis. We had a book club where we read different business books and talked about it. But the I think the biggest takeaway for me in that book, and one of the best ones, is this concept of building your boardroom. And so her point was that some of the most important, all the most important discussions about your career and growth are done in a room that you're not in. And so you have to build, strategic relationships. You have to build relationships with people that will be your advocate in that room. And it's very true. So that's something I've tried to tell a lot of MSLs, and it was very eye-opening for me. I thought, my boss is the one advocating for me to get a raise or to get a different position or to do that growth opportunity. And in my own leadership experience, when you're doing year-end reviews, you are sitting around a room with people that you're talking about MSLs, you're talking about other people on teams that they don't really know them. They only know them from that experience at an internal meeting or working on a project with them for a very short period of time. And I think often when you're in the field, you're you're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about the people's perception of you, and do you have people that will go to bat for you and put you up for those roles? So with that means you have to know how you're perceived and what people think, and that feedback is really important because without that information, you can't really build this group of advocates for you that are gonna help you. So I
Mm.
think that's a, a big aha moment in my own career too. Do you have those people that will go to bat for you?
And so how do you take that and as a leader to the folks that are reporting to you and who you're responsible to and responsible to giving feedback to help reassure them that you're that person in the room they're not in,
Well, I think that
supporting
gets
them.
that gets into um, building a culture of feedback. So when you're, I can mention an MSL director I worked with who's fantastic at this. He set up a regular call, one-on-one call once a month with each team member, and then also once a month, so you met with them twice a month, was a development call. And it was a call just strictly, what do you need? What do you want? What are your goals and dreams? And really challenged his team to get into that conversation so that, he could better understand how to make those connections. And I think things like that help build this culture of feedback where you can open the door to that conversation. Um, and so from that boardroom perspective, I noticed a disconnect with, leaders that say one thing in one room, and I thought, "This person out here has never heard this. They don't know that they didn't show up to that ad board prepared, or they don't know," and even the positive things, the things where they shine, I thought some of them don't know that that made a big impact on someone and showed their leadership and aptitude, uh, and so I thought we have to connect these where you're getting that feedback in a timely fashion. Feedback a year later doesn't doesn't help. Can be that can be the soul crushing stuff that you think, why did nobody tell me that? So I think having the space for that and then making sure that that information is communicated back helps someone kind of understand where they are now and thinking about where they want to go. What do they need?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's striking, I think when we hear like when we just talking about the word feedback, I think the immediate go to, and
Right.
you mentioned this in your takeaway, the immediate feedback is, or the immediate thought process rather, is constructive or negative feedback and some of
Right,
those
like, "You
things.
did a
And
bad
so
job."
we automatically go that direction, which makes us want to kind of shy away from those kind of conversations. But it really is, it's a component of both. It has to be those things, what you're doing well, where you see opportunities as well. In full disclosure, I'm a people person by heart and connection, and so uh, a default of mine and unhealthy is to be a best friend or wanting to really be valued by the people that I get to serve, and that can look unhealthy as well too. One of the things that was striking to me though is or so with that, there was a tendency to not want to have some of those conversations where it's more of, hey, improvement needs to be seen or this, that, and the other. But then it was just kind of really this revelation to me is if I truly do care about these people, then it is doing them a disservice to not be able to share that type of feedback. So then it was like, okay, why am I feeling the way that I feel? Are there ways that I can set it up to where it's a tone of improvement versus browbeating or those types of things too? So just in my own journey, I think that that's been something I've had to grow in over the years with that. So um, yeah, I'd love to hear more. And I think one of the things that it's probably on Mary's mind too is how do you create that space where you can be trusted with your team, that they feel safe in that. So it's the psychological safety, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what are some practical ways that you found that create that type of environment where it's not perceived as a threat, rather, right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think as the leader, you set the tone. So, if you are, I think, both authentic and vulnerable as a leader, if you're, talking to your team honestly, I think that goes a long way too. part of leadership is you have to sometimes carry through initiatives that you don't think are a great idea. I think there's a way in which you can, and you don't have to pretend like, I mean, sometimes just being honest with the team of like, this is what we have to do right now. And uh, you may not like it, but that's actually not, doesn't really matter. It's about, can we deliver on this thing that the organization is asking us to? And so I think being authentic in your leadership helps because you're opening the space for ideas are welcome and you're not going to get in trouble for saying I'm not so sure about this. I would actively encourage my team to share that with me. You need to be polite and you can't be disruptive. I think that's important. Um, but that opens the space for that, and that actually opened the space for me to have conversations with different leaders on my team too about how their words matter. And so, if you are disparaging stuff all the time on a call or telling other people this is a really bad idea, you are a leader on the team and people take a lot of stock in what you're saying, and so it's important that, you, are thinking about the power of your words. Because I also feel like the higher you go up in an organization, your words matter a lot more, and you have to be careful in how you're saying that. So I think that I've had good luck kind of giving feedback on that too, sometimes to people of, people are actually listening and care what you say, and so if it's always negative, that impacts the team. Um, and yeah, I think through that, just creating, just giving that regularly to people is welcomed. And oftentimes I will ask people, can I give you some feedback? I think that's important. I've had someone on the team once, he said, I really don't want it right now. And I said, okay, that's fair. I said, when you're
That's
ready,
why I asked. That's why I
we
asked
can
first.
talk. Exactly. Because, if they're not ready to receive it, I think don't waste your time, but at least offer. Um,
I love
and
that
then, like
too
I said,
because the person's
yeah,
comfortable enough being honest with you and like, I'm not in the headspace right now where I can take this right now. Can we like put a pin in it and come back to it later? I mean, then that I think that's a sign of you having set an environment of psychological safety too, that the person felt comfortable saying, yeah, just not right now. I'm kind of curious about, you know, how how can you deliver feedback, positive or negative, that will really stick with somebody versus sort of fade away. Like sometimes I don't even think about it when I'm giving either positive kudos kind of feedback or more constructive. And I'm always trying to be careful with the way that I give feedback that it's positive because I'm a people pleaser too. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Um, but like you say, sometimes you have to give it. But sometimes I'm surprised by something I just sort of say off the cuff, totally unscripted, unplanned, that I'll hear weeks or a month later. That time that you told me this, you have no idea how much that meant to me. And um and that stuck with that person. I don't even know what I did for that to stick with that person. But like how how can you give feedback in a way that it becomes embedded in them and and keeps them doing things in a positive way?
you're hitting on something that I guess you don't really have control over how it's received. I've had that too. Someone says, "You said something to me one time," and I think, "Oh my god, what on earth did I say to you?" Um, so I guess you don't always know when that stuff's gonna stick, and I think you're gonna give feedback to people too that are not gonna take it at all, and that's okay. I think I've told my teams, you'll get feedback. You should always listen. Um, don't get defensive, but then take with it what you will. Sometimes it's, you know, uh, I don't know. You can always self-reflect to a certain point. Sometimes people are just not. Sometimes people don't care. They're not going to take it, but that's okay. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be cultivating that environment and giving it. But I think what you're getting at is and Chad, you mentioned it too. If you lead with kindness and you're thinking about what's gonna help this person? Obviously, you shouldn't give feedback on things that aren't gonna help a person or don't matter. Um, but if you know that they're trying to get their foot in a door or work on a project and they're sabotaging themselves or not, or not, that's really important that you deliver that as a friend. And I think those sorts of conversations, just when someone knows you have the courage to open up the conversation and that you actually care about them enough to have that, I think that's really meaningful and means a lot to people. And I'm sure you can reflect in your own life of, where you thought, wow, that was really nice that that person actually took the time to have that conversation with me or saw that in me. And it means a lot because a lot of people just go through. You'll have leaders in life that just never take the time to get to know you or give that feedback, and so it can be hard to hear sometimes depending on what it is. But I think if you know that in the corporate world, it means a lot when someone just takes time out of their day to have that
Yeah.
conversation with you. I think that
Yeah.
that's when it will hit in a good way.
I think I think one of the things that you talked about are just putting all these things together, these pieces together too, thinking about the importance of psychological. One way of establishing that is being open to feedback as well too, from a leadership standpoint. I do my best to always end in conversations. What do you need from me, or what can I do to make your job better, easier, better, more satisfying, giving that opportunity for that. So they know it's bi-directional versus just, that I'm human and still trying to grow just like they do. It's just in a different type of responsibility. But I do want to go back to one of the things that you said. I'll make sure it wasn't glossed over, was asking for permission does a world of good. Um, to can I share something with you? Right. I think that number one, it does this thing of, it removes any kind of defensive barrier. It helps tear that down. Right. Instead of, so there's a posture of accepting because you've invited somebody into that conversation versus just leading with that as well too.
You mean like
So
saying, "Hey, we gotta talk."
or yes, or hey, I need to provide, or let me provide this, or hey, really, what you did here in this scenario was the wrong thing. It's almost helping them. It's either, well, there's two things. You can either ask questions to invite that in to share that feedback, or even just walk them through those conversations with questions to help them understand. Oh, wow, maybe this came off the way that it was not intended, and it's just a learning opportunity, right? So I think that's, um, what I'm hearing you say, Lindsay. You tell me if I'm wrong. It's more of, feedback as part of a learning journey as well, too, of how to communicate and how to. It's going with the mindset of, look, you're trying to help set them up for the best success that they could possibly have. And you see some ways that could potentially be modified to help position them in that way. And it's a journey of doing that. Am I hearing you
Yeah,
correctly?
I think it's I mean, for me, it's just, I think, a regular part of connecting with people. And as you mentioned before, I've had some colleagues who are, um, view themselves as people pleasers, I think I had one colleague who always said, I want to protect my team from the negative feedback. And she really viewed it that she was helping her team by not sharing things. Because there may be feedback you don't agree with, but like we talked about, perception's really important. And so it doesn't matter if it's true or not sometimes, if that's the perception people have if they have perceptions of a team, I think it's your job to, as a leader, to let people know that at least, and then think about what are ways that we can change the perception of this team. And so, she viewed it like I'm helping my team this way, but it ultimately did not help the team because there were these perceptions that leaders had, and there was nothing done to fix that. So, and I felt bad for her team because I thought they don't know that, their work is viewed one way. They're only getting the feedback, only getting this great feedback from their boss that's trying to protect them, but it doesn't. I don't think it helped their career development to be protected. I think it's sometimes you just have to hear it and think, okay, how can we how can we work on this or fix this as a team?
Worst thing that's gonna happen is that they're gonna say, "I wish somebody had told me. Why didn't anybody
Yeah,
tell me?" I mean, and I've been kind of going along on this path for the past couple years where I could have improved, or I could have made some changes that would maybe have me look a little bit more favorable in the eyes of people who decide my future in the boardrooms I'm not in, you know.
exactly. I had shared this with Mary. I, at a year-end review, got feedback about body language, about crossing arms, and it came out of the blue. I was like, "What? What?" And, that's exactly what I thought. I thought that's a small thing that you can share with someone, uh, around the right around the time that that happened. If you are having closed body language in a meeting, um, that's an easy thing to tell someone, and so to hear it later in that context, I thought, "What is" "Why was this not shared with me earlier?" Where I think that person at the time was maybe uncomfortable, I don't know, but
So how would you, if you perceived that there was a body language thing, maybe not that same one, but how would you have handled that if you were on the other side of that?
I've had that. I've been direct with, I'm thinking in the context of MSL leadership, if an MSL is on their phone too much in a meeting, or that's a common one. I think it's really important to that can be the same day. That can be like, hey, I know you don't mean this, but you were checking your phone a lot during the meeting, and people people notice that, and so I think those things can be very easily again, as a like, "I'm trying to help you here," "Here's a quick thing you can do." So I think something like that is fairly easy to handle in the moment. It's not personal, it's not about the person. I think we often have body language quirks where we are connected to our phones in a way that can be distracting, and it's good to get that feedback in the moment.
That Mary has ADHD like I do, and so yeah, I think we're always fidgeting with different things, and yeah, technology does not really help that. So yeah, that's I definitely can appreciate that. Um, One of the things I'm curious
You just
about, like,
violated HIPAA by telling everybody
I didn't say
about
you were diagnosed with it, or is it you're showing qualities,
Your quality.
characteristics of
not
someone
today. I'm on my meds.
with ADHD.
I
Yes,
am
me
very
me
focused,
too, me too, me too.
laser focused. Go ahead. I'm
Squirrel.
sorry.
Yeah, think about a squirrel. Okay. So I'm curious, just your thoughts. Do you feel like positive? Are you a sandwich type of method, or are you or do you
Well,
feel like there needs to be distinct conversations when it comes to positive reinforcement and identifying an area? Do you feel like that dilutes the positive? I'd love to hear just your
I'm not
perspective and experience on that.
think one of the big takeaways is you have to figure out how it's authentic to you. I think you have to be authentic. So for me, a sandwich thing is not authentic. I think, and I can when people are delivering it to me, I think, okay,
Yeah,
like,
I have strong
what's
opinions
coming
on
in the
that
middle,
too.
So
Yeah, you're all doctoral degree people. You know that you're about to get the you know what sandwich.
so
So, like, don't play those little mind games with me.
I don't
Yeah,
love that. Or when you
I'm
can
with you.
tell the person in front of you is getting uncomfortable because they're going to have to say something. I think that's it. If that's authentic for you and works for you, if you're great at that and that's natural, I think then sure, do that. Um, all these things are practice. So if you practice that way, I think that's good. I think for me, that doesn't feel authentic. I would rather have a one-on-one with someone, and I have, if I've had MSLs that want to get into a medical director role, and so I'll just be direct with it. I'll say, I think the area you need to eh, get more exposure to or get more comfortable in is, big picture thinking, um, or being able to put your thoughts on a slide. Some of those, it can be practical things like that. But I think I've had more luck just being direct, but having that kind of discussion in a discussion that's set up, like, okay, we're going to talk about your future and where you want to go, and then being honest in the conversation of where their strengths are, and then where some of the areas are to work on. And I don't think that doesn't feel soul crushing when it's done in the right way. but but the sandwich, I don't always doesn't always land right with me, at least. So
Understood. Understood. Just curious, if because I've done both, right? And I think it's part of it. Kind of goes back to you mentioned individual, so that's really from a leadership giving feedback and what their comfortable is. But can you talk a little bit about how you talked about an individualized approach, and that was
yeah,
one of your superpowers, right? Of understanding and connecting with the different individuals and knowing that they're different. Type A. I mean, a lot of this role is type A, let's be clear, but at the same time, people receive information. Some people want the why, some people just say, give me the facts, right? I feel like I've encountered almost it all. Still trying to figure out how to process and communicate, but I'd love to hear more about this individualized approach that you take. Tell us more.
Yeah, I think if I'm working with a very sensitive, self-critical MSL, I might not be as direct, but, just like, do you wanna hear something?" Not gonna say that to them, but that type of person, I might lead more in a sometimes even with people like that, I almost give more positive feedback of like, "You're being too hard on yourself here. You actually did a great job, with this." But kind of that's probably something where I'd let them lead more in what do they want? What do they think's in their way? What are the barriers? How do they wanna, guide the conversation that way where they can have some of the, uh critical moments they can share they can share their thoughts where I can provide a different perspective, because that type of person, you don't want them to just shut down, internalize, and walk away thinking, "Oh my god, I can't," you know, um, "this was a terrible conversation." But then conversely, I've had some MSLs that are very, very confident in a way and kind of, are not so self-aware. And with those, I've been more direct of, "Hey, here's what's in your way," or what I'm observing, does this resonate? And leading the conversation that way. So I think it's really just I think about, is this person going to shut down in the conversation? Are they going to be open? What do they want to hear? What are they ready to hear? And kind of tailor it that way. But again, when you have ongoing discussions, it's not out of the blue. We've never talked about this. Now we're going to talk about it. Where it can be very, very jarring for anyone.
So, I have a question actually that it's going to make you maybe a little expand on what you were just talking about. So, could you like kind of walk us through an example of a feedback conversation that you've had that went really well and not like an easy one, like, oh, that suit looked great on you today. That's probably actually an HR violation, um, but not an easy one, but one that you maybe felt like you had to prepare for to have, and then the way it came out great.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm thinking of one. Um, there was an MSL and a team I was working with, and they were very, ambitious and focused. And when I was in operations, this person had wanted to partner on, they had some ideas around medical excellence and things. And so I, as a leader, I think it's really important to listen to people on teams and work with them. So I set up time to talk about, what we could partner on together. And I gave some, asked for some stuff back. I said, "Come back to me with your thoughts organized, and let's go through it and see if there's an actual initiative here or something we can do." And the MSL kinda just blew me off over ti it just said, "Actually, I'm really busy. We had a big meeting and, I'm not gonna be able to do it." And in my mind, I thought, "Okay, they wanna work on a project or get exposure to something, but what I offered was not interesting enough for them to to take me up on it." And that gets back into the building your board. I thought this person had a great opportunity where I could say, "Oh my gosh, they're amazing to work with, and this is great." And so they didn't do it. So later on, when I took over the team, that's where I had to be fairly direct. This person was kind of challenging things, and so as we were talking about their career growth, that's where I shared directly. I said, do you want some feedback? And they did. And I said, when you did that and blew me off, it really came across like that, came across like you didn't think my project was interesting enough or going to or shiny enough or, exciting enough to put the effort into. And I said, actually, where you get ahead is by helping with those things that are not so glamorous or aren't so exciting and
Yeah.
show your strengths, show your expertise and uh, would have helped me out, and then I would go and talk to leadership and tell them how great it was working with you. And so, but he had a really good moment. He said, I was really tired after this big congress that we had been a part of, and he's like, but I probably shouldn't have handled it that way. I probably should have just told you in the moment that I didn't have the bandwidth to take it on, but I was interested, and so we had this great conversation, and I think he realized the importance of how that can come across, even though in the moment he was just it was just end of the year and he didn't have it in him. But I think that would have been a much better thing to share than to just kind of drop it. And so it was really eye-opening for him. And then I think through that, he started to think about what do leaders think about? What are they, when you have these opportunities to show up, do you take it or not? And I really saw a lot of personal growth in him after
Mm.
that, and it
And so
strengthened our
that was a
relationship.
lasting that was a
Yeah.
lasting, like, feedback that stuck, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think he had just not thought about it's hard sometimes to not to think outside of ourselves, and so he wasn't thinking about how that came across. Yeah, and he's been successful. I think he definitely will end up in leadership at some point, but it was nice to see this challenging conversation kind of turn into this productive thing, and I think he is grateful for a lot of the conversations that we had, which were, um, focused on, how do these things come across and how can you show up better in the future?
So the example, so I'm going to ask you the opposite. Tell me an example of feedback that didn't go well. Maybe you delivered wrong, or you experienced being delivered wrong to you, or you could have delivered in a better way, or things like that. Would love to, if you're willing to do that, right? That's part of the reason why we
Yeah.
have this whole MSL lead, is to help others move faster on that scale to leading well. And so that's by learning from others as well, too, good and
Right,
bad.
right. No, I think I'm thinking back to some of my pharmacy days, but I think if you're or where I've given kind of the worst feedback is if I'm actually angry about something or mad. I think it's important that you give some space there and you don't, because then I think it just comes across as adversarial. So I'm thinking back to some you know, challenging performance reviews I've had to give where you have people that are just like, negative or and where that's, then I've got kind of heated. I had I'm trying to think back to when I had a Zoom call gone bad. I had someone on a team that was very antagonistic and always challenging me, and I kind of met their energy on the call. And I remember all these faces of people like this on the call, and, you know, and I did later, I think, go back to that person and say, uh, I don't think this put either of us in the right light. I don't like how I showed up on the call. I don't like getting upset like that, and I apologized in a way for losing my cool, but also, kind of letting that person know, like, we can't do that again. We can't have an argument on Zoom and and disrupt a call for everybody else. And um, and in that position, I was the boss, so I was able to kind of set that tone. But that was one that I think, yeah, that didn't. If you get angry, me getting angry at that person and trying to match their energy did not, I think, teach them anything good or deliver feedback. It probably just added fuel to the fire.
Trying to take the importance of taking the emotion out of the conversation and trying to be it as objective. I mean, that's easier said than done. There's no doubt about it, especially when
It's
you're
like
being pulled.
parenting. If like the
It is.
if the
It is.
if yeah, if the energy's charged, I think it's sometimes best to just let it cool down, sleep on it, and then come in, ask that person to come into a more neutral space to say, like, yeah, let's reflect on that. How did that go? And then then that's more productive, because if two people are mad.
And having the EQ to know that, hey, you need to say, hey, I need to step away for a little bit on this. This is an important conversation we need to have. But let's plan for this tomorrow, or whatever that is, right? It's just so we
Hmm.
can approach it in the right way. Yeah, I think that's good. I think one of my biggest learnings from giving negative feedback is not having a full understanding of the story as well, too, or the situation, where it's maybe I hear feedback from cross-functional partners or leadership that maybe it was a certain perspective of an output, and then going straight to the person and saying, hey, why did this happen, or why did you do it this
Right.
way, and those types of things, without fully appreciating the context, and realizing the damage that did as well, too, in a certain situation, right? Not having that full information of all the um the
Right.
backstory and those types of things, and not believing the best in my people. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they handled it the right way, to be clear. There's still opportunities,
Right.
but approaching it the way that they or me coming in that way without hearing versus saying, help me or can you tell me more about this circumstance so I can fully appreciate. I've received some feedback and I just want to make sure I understand the picture
Right.
and then offering it, right? And I've
Yeah.
done that by mistake. I certainly.
That's something I try to check myself all the time is assuming positive intent because I do think most everybody, you wake up, you go to work, you want to do a good job. I don't think most people are like, I want to create chaos today at work. That's not your intent. So I think exactly when you hear something, I think that's what I try to challenge myself is that this is one perspective of the story. Because sometimes you'll hear something that you think that is out of that does not sound like this person or what, you know, that's not the person I know. But exactly coming to them and kind of seeking more information before you and not doing it with judgment. I mean, I think it's important that you can say, you know, what happened on that call or give me some perspective because then you'll find out missing pieces of the story or things and it can be a productive conversation because that other person's experience was real if they think
That's right.
this person did a crazy thing on a call but it's good to gather all of that before leading because I think as the person receiving it sometimes I've thought do you know me? Would you think I would do that? Do you think that I wouldn't have that intent, or do you think I would try to do the wrong thing? And so it's important to, understand that I think most people are coming from a good place, but things can be misunderstood or come across the wrong way.
This is probably a discussion for another whole other discussion. And Lindsay and I talked about it a little bit is, I'm curious about the use of strength finders or the disc profile or any of those things into incorporating that knowledge into knowing how to come at somebody. I should say come at, that sounds oppositional, but to handle conversations that may be difficult if you know how they like to receive information. I mean, like, Chad and I've talked about like the love languages and stuff like that. Um,
I think it helps a
and
lot. It helps quite a bit. So I've done all of those things you mentioned I've experienced with, and I think getting that readout of your team is really important because then you can think about what uh, you know, how yeah, exactly. How's this person going to receive this? And I think in medical affairs, you have a lot of people that are on the analytical side that are um, want data or want things. And so that's the stuff I think about. Okay, let me have examples or let me frame this in a way that this person will receive. And you can also see on those types of inventories who your really sensitive people are that maybe you need to kind of back into it into a different way. So I think those are really helpful. And for your team also to see how you are. I try to tell my team I would rather you just say something direct than beat around the bush because I'm not like thinking about that afterwards. Just say, hey, I didn't like X, Y, or Z, or could you do this next time? And I'll be very open to that.
yeah, I was just going to ask you if you guys value letting them see your profile.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Can you talk about the importance of being or the specificity of your feedback?
Yes, I think you need to be very specific because I've been the recipient of vague feedback, and I think we all have. And that's kind of the worst. I've been sitting there in conversations thinking, okay, this person is trying to tell me something. They're coding it in this vague language or kind of beating around the bush, and I'm not able to, I'm not able to take away what are the exact. Was there something that happened? Did someone have a perception or takeaway that sometimes you wonder in the moment, like, is this just your thought or was there actual real feedback from someone behind the scenes that said, I liked this or didn't like this? And so I think being specific is important. And that's why you should prepare for a lot of these conversations too, to think about how, what information is really important for this person to take away. Because yeah, vague feedback, I feel like it's like I don't know what to improve upon, I don't know what to change, I don't know how to prepare better.
or even
without
what
some
you're
of those
doing.
steps. Yeah, or what
Yeah.
happened?
Or even too, again, I think, and much of this has been good around the constructive feedback, but even I've found in my experience too, I'm a positive person by nature as well, and wanting to compliment and, hey, great job team, but being more specific on what it is that they've done a great
Right,
job. That
right.
way it doesn't fall kind of on deaf ears. Like, this is okay. All right. He's saying how great we are or good. And that starts just to kind of the impact of hearing that seems to diminish over time. And so if I can um, really focus on what I'm praising them for or what they've done well, and then really them realizing that I'm their number one advocate. They're my KOLs now, right? And
Yeah.
so my job is to really praise them in public, and then encourage them to do things different in more of a private type of manner. But if I can do those things from a public standpoint, um, there is a desire to want to get better inherent because they know that I'm for them
Right, it
in
shows you're paying
ways.
attention and that you know them and, all that stuff rather than just great job team. Yeah, you're right. Over time that loses. It's like, okay, that's just what he
It's
says.
umph.
It's just yeah. Yeah.
Well, can I ask one more question before we wrap up? So thinking about people they're in their first people leadership role, and they're encountering the first time they're going to have to give or want to give, you know, attaboy, attagirl feedback or constructive redirectional feedback. And they want to do it right and they want to do it in a way that it sticks. I mean, what advice would you give to somebody who is about to do it for the first time?
Yeah, I have a few things. I mean, I'm always anyone that knows me knows I'm always reading like a business book. So I think there's Radical Candor is a great book, and Crucial Conversations is a really good book on. I think once you understand at the heart of it that these things are necessary and that it actually helps people, and that even though it's counterintuitive, you think I don't want to say the thing, I don't want to do this, but it actually creates a great environment, a great relationship builder with people. So I think getting yourself in that right mindset, because if you're I've seen it delivered. If you're uncomfortable, that person can tell you're really uncomfortable, and that's what they're going to walk away with. So I think get in the right mindset, practice, think about how you might want to hear it, or you know especially those hard conversations, thinking about yeah, how you might want to hear it is important. So I think it's practicing. I think it's leaning into it being uncomfortable. Like Chad said, sometimes your instinct is like, I don't want to touch this. I know we're wrapping up. I had to talk to one colleague about their drinking at meetings, and that was really uncomfortable. Ended up actually being a very good thing for that person to understand how others were seeing them in the moment, and I think helped them a lot. So I think you just have to think about, exactly, like, is this going to help the person? Because if it's just feedback on something stupid, that really you don't have to give feedback on everything. I think that's another takeaway. I mean, it's pick your battles, um, but commit to it and do it. And I think, give the praise often, seek the feedback often. Yeah, I had a manager that once a year during the review would say, "What can I do better?" And I was like, This is really the place for me to tell you how to be a better boss?" Probably not. So
Yeah.
I think it's building that. So yeah, I think but don't. The biggest thing for new leaders is, I think, don't think that avoiding these conversations is helping the team or making things
Mm,
better, because it will just snowball in the background, and then you'll be angry, or you'll be having these things where it will be a terrible conversation.
that's right. Be consistent in your conversations, I think, as well too. One of the things that you encouraged us as well, or encouraged me, is if the consistency on that is like you're not giving there's no surprises, and
Yeah, exactly.
being able to helps even regulate emotions that you might experience or your frustrations, and it may actually reduce your workload on the end, right? Because you're not trying to put out fires maybe that have been created because of certain work behaviors and things like that from the team. So if we stop and think about it, it really is a gift to everybody. It's a gift to the leader, it's a gift to the person as well too. So really good thought provoking conversation, Linsay. Thanks so much for taking time just to share. It's obvious that you're passionate about this, whether it's through shared learning experiences or just really it's been a model or a secret for your success as a leader. So really appreciate you hopping on and sharing your story.
Thank you. This has been really fun.
Awesome. Well, Mary, anything from your end before we wrap up? I
Well,
didn't
I
think
mean,
so. I didn't think
Any
so. So
I've
feedback?
got to go learn how to be a fire marshal now.
yeah. Well,
I was a safety
um,
champion on one of my teams, so yeah.
We'll
well,
have to
that's
share. We'll
great.
have to
So
share our
my
learnings.
husband always is like the safety champion.
Oh my
I like
gosh, that'll
that
crack
better
me
than
up.
fire marshal. I'm gonna get a
I was
fire
gonna think.
champion.
I was thinking about Fire Marshal Bill, right, from In Living Color, but that's about as close as I can get. Anyway, listeners, thanks so much for joining us for another casual conversation here on MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. Remember, leadership and becoming a leader. It's hard to do that when we try to learn in isolation. We best learn from one another, and that's what our mission here is at MSL Lead Chronicles. So thanks for being a part of that. Until next time, lead well.